If you're visiting with us today, we want to welcome you to a Friendship Sunday. We just want a chance to hang out with you guys and to get to know you and for you to get to know us. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to preach. We have 7 preachers in the house, and we have a preaching team, and everybody rotates. So we'd like to give you a taste and a flavor of all 7 preachers. So don't worry, it's not going to be a 5-hour deal. It's going to be 5 minutes apiece. So I get a chance to start. And my name is Pastor Art Snow. I'd like to share my story with you. And the theme of today's message is our journey with Jesus. So let me tell you, my journey with Jesus began in 1973. I was 17 years old, was not a Christian, had never gone to church in my entire life, didn't like church, they didn't like me. It just is a mutual dislike for one another. So I was just a hippie that got saved off the streets. So in the 70s, during the charismatic move, a bunch of us hippies just got saved. And this revolution happened. This fantastic thing happened. These unchurched kids got saved and found Jesus in their own way. So rock and roll became kind of the centerpiece of who we were and what we were. Christian rock came into being, and that's kind of how we got started. I got saved in 1973. About a year and a half later, I met this beautiful lady on the front row. And 5 years after that, we got married. We married 42 years and are madly in love with one another. So we pastored in Canton, Ohio for 5 years. Then we went to Cleveland and pastored Cleveland, Ohio for 9 years and pastored there. Then we went to Washington, D.C. and pastored 11 years there. And we've been here 17 going on 18 years here. So that's kind of our history along the way. Let me tell you that when I fell in love with Jesus, here's the deal. I fell absolutely head over heels in love with Jesus. And one of the first Bible verses I grabbed hold of was in Luke 9 about putting your hand to the plow and not looking back. I want you to know I put my hand to the plow and I have not looked back. So in those early years, we kind of threw out everything that looked like traditional church, right? So here's how I found Jesus. I found Jesus by the avenue of love. So that's why I talk about the love of God. If I can teach you to love God, you do everything else just right? If I try to teach you a bunch of rules, people get tripped up over rules. If I teach you to fall in love, then love will cause you to do the craziest things, man. It'll cause you to come into a deep relationship with Christ and deep discipleship with Him. So my life has been about loving God. So I thought the best way to introduce myself to you in my journey is to share with you my two verses that drive my life verses that drive me. All right? One is found in Ezra, and one is found in the book of Colossians. So let me read the Ezra verse to you. Ezra chapter 7, verse 10. It says, "For Ezra had set his heart to study the law of the Lord and to practice it and to teach his statutes and ordinances in Israel." So I've been called to do 3 things in my life. I know my purpose. I only have one purpose, and that's to preach. I've done that all my entire adult life. God's called me to 3 things: to learn the Word, to live the Word, and to teach the Word. That's all I do. If you ask me to do anything else in this building, I don't know how to do it. My wife knows how to do all those things. I don't know how to do one thing: learn the Word, practice the Word, and teach the Word. That's it. All right, so that's who I am in a nutshell. My second verse in the book of Colossians chapter 1. Let me find that for you. Colossians chapter 1, verses 28 and 29. "We proclaim Him, admonishing every man and teaching every man with all wisdom, so that we may present every man complete in Christ. For this purpose I labor, striving according to His power, which mightily works within me." So my call to the body of Christ is this: to disciple and mature people into the full measure of what God has called them to be. So my journey with Him has been a fantastic journey. Every day of my life, people say, "Did you have a good day today?" I have a good day every day. Because I get to live out my mission. I get to live out my vision, which is loving people. That's all I do. I love people and disciple people. That's kind of the simplicity of a guy like me. I get a chance to stand here and love on people and disciple them. So that brings me to the end of my time, and it went so quick. So I get a chance to introduce to you Tiffany Sainville. Tiffany, come. Welcome, Tiffany.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? God is good, isn't he? So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Tiffany Sainville. I have been at this church. Actually, my very first Sunday visiting was Pastor Art and Pastor Sharon's first Sunday being introduced as the new pastors. So I've been here 17, 18 years about. So I actually started here when I was 14 years old. And I fell in love with Jesus at a very young age. Honestly, if you ask me when I gave my life to Christ, I have absolutely no idea, if I'm being honest, because I grew up in relationship with him. And that, I could not have asked God for more favor and more generosity and more care, especially because of how I grew up. Now, I grew up in a 2-parent home, very loved, very cared for, but I was the youngest of 4 siblings. And for those of you who are judging the youngest, let me tell you, it's not what you think it is, so you guys need to let that go. My siblings did not love me well. They didn't, because I was the nuisance, I was the spoiled one. We were all spoiled, for the record. So I grew up with a lot of rejection issues, because for me, I couldn't comprehend how if people who were genetically disposed to loving me did not love me, how could anyone else ever love me, right? So I really, really struggled with that. And then going to school. Now, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood at the time. And being that I'm mixed, I'm Puerto Rican and black, I didn't fit in anywhere because I don't speak Spanish, so I was never Spanish enough for the Spanish girls. But if you look at me, you don't really know that I'm black, so I was never black enough for the black girls. And I just genuinely didn't fit anywhere. But the one place I always fit was with God. That was the one place that I always fit. So going through school, being the weird one, because I'm a Christian, I don't fit your mold, that makes you uncomfortable. And I'm a naturally awkward person, so I embrace that. I am perfectly okay with my awkwardness. I'm okay with making you uncomfortable if it means that I'm living the way that I know God intends me to live, right? But it's still a hard way to grow up, isn't it? Just feeling like you never fit, but like I said, for me, just always knowing that I had the opportunity to run to the arms of the one who created me. And he created me for love. He created me for belonging. So I'm not going to give you guys my life verse. I'm going to give you guys the verse that catapulted me into living a life of acceptance in Christ and having that be enough. And that's Galatians 1:10. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. So getting to that place, while it was difficult, while it was rough, while it was hard, the one thing that I realized and the things that I will always be grateful for is that I never fit in. Because if I found acceptance anywhere else, I wouldn't have needed God nearly as deeply as I do, and nearly as much as I do now. So for me, my journey with Christ has always been about him taking the opportunities that the enemy meant to wreck me, that the enemy meant to destroy me, and using them as an opportunity for me to draw closer to him so that I can be not just loved, but loved very well and loved with deep intention so that when I love others, it's solely from the love of Christ. It's not tainted by that person who broke my heart or that person who just didn't get it. I don't have to love like them because I get the opportunity to love like the perfect one who loved me first. So that, in short, is my story. And I would like to welcome Jolanda.
How's everybody doing? Awesome. My story starts in like this really epic scene that I'm going to paint for you. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I turned on my TV and realized my mom didn't pay the TV bill again, so there's like static going on. And I'm just kind of like, I get a phone call from my brother, and he essentially walks me through the gospel. I had been going to a hip-hop church, that were showing me Jesus from a context that I needed, because Jesus was like this really abstract thing for me. But when I started seeing Jesus preach through a form that I was familiar with, which was my passion, which was music, which was hip hop, it grabbed me in a way that I never thought I would ever get grabbed. And then as he was talking to me, I had just left hip hop church, and he was like, yo, so what are you waiting for? And I was like, struck by that, not only because it was very upfront, it was a very bold question, but I was struck by that because I felt like I heard Jesus asking me the same thing at the same time. And it hit me. I was like, ugh, okay. He walked me through the gospel. I accepted him that night. The next day, just to let you guys know, the day before this, I was very selfish. Like Tiffany was talking, I was the youngest. I was favored, but my siblings always beat me up, so I wasn't like the most beloved as far as that sense. And I'm washing dishes. The youngest doesn't have to wash dishes. And I'm like, my heart is being transformed into the image of Jesus I didn't know at that time. But it started to help me see that I'm really not about to be in control of this thing. Me saying yes to Jesus means that he's going to have the pen to my journey. He's going to have the pen to my story. And I had to process that in a couple different ways. Went through a lot of different things in my life. We don't have the time to go through every little thing, and it would be too much anyway. But let's fast forward to when I meet a very special lady. Me and her decide that we're not going to wait too long to get married. We're just going to kind of do the thing. So I make up this whole proposal. I'm like, oh, we're going to do this in the park. We like going to the park, so we're going to set this up in the park. I have all my friends there, all her friends there. It's going to be great. And then I get a phone call that she finds out. Someone calls her and tells her what's going to happen. Fun. Journey, right? But we're talking about journeys. You can't always know what you're going to expect in a journey. So to my detriment, I have to like sit down, and I'm like, my friend, like I'm around a bunch of my friends, and they're like talking me off the ledge. So I'm like, that's it. We're just gonna go to City Hall, and we're just gonna figure it out at City Hall, because I'm not planning another proposal. I went through so much. We're not doing this again. I'm sorry. We're just gonna. And they're like walking me. It's okay, Jolanda. Just breathe for a second. Don't worry about it. So they talk me off the ledge, and God gives me this image of how He wants me to propose to my now wife. Now tomorrow is going to be our 2-year anniversary. Yeah. And it has been absolutely nothing but a journey. And what he showed me to ask her was not, will you marry me? Because that terminology, though it still has a lot of the meaning that it should have in it, it loses a lot of the depth, right? So he showed me this phrase, which I put on this like panel of wood that I planned on bringing, but I forgot, that says, will you journey until eternity with me? Because I get a lot of points for that. I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention. I really wasn't. But that's what he told me to write on that. Because as I accepted Jesus and I said yes to him a bunch of times, it led me to do a lot of things and become somebody that I didn't expect to be. Way better than I would have been, mind you, but someone I did not expect to be. And then he put me with someone who was way out of my league, someone who I did not expect to be with because of her character and what she brings to the table. And now what I am today is a product of someone who said yes to Jesus time and time again, and is not like a perfect person because of it, but has put himself in a position to grow and to see Jesus in such a beautiful way that now I'm like, if I had to calculate my life, I would not be here. And it's only because I gave the pen of my story to someone else. And I said yes to someone else who knows how to write my story way better than I ever could. And that's why I am where I am today. So I'm going to pass this mic off to Pastor Sharon.
I was 9 years old. A long time ago, I was 9 years old. And a friend invited me to what was called Good News Club. And Good News Club was just a way to share the gospel with kids in the summer when they didn't have anything else to do but get into trouble. And so someone, some God-fearing person would set up a little table in their backyard, and they would invite the neighbor kids in, and they would share the gospel with them. And my neighbor invited me, and I went, and that was the day that I accepted Jesus. So I accepted Jesus and I entered into a relationship with him. I'd always known about God. I grew up in church. And so I grew up thinking that I was good. It's all good. And then I got into high school and I realized that there were decisions to be made that could be good or not so good. And so when I was 16, in the midst of a pretty bad fight with someone who, we sat first clarinet, first, second, and third chair. So it was huge competition. And she was always first clarinet, one chair ahead of me. So I hated her. What else would you do but hate her, right? And so we had this kind of hate thing going on. And one Sunday, I grew up in a church where they had something called Lay Witness Mission, and they brought a bunch of people in who were really sold out to Christ, and they shared their life story with us. And I made sure I was incredibly busy because, remember, I had gotten into a relationship with Jesus when I was 9, and I was good. So I didn't need anything else. And this little girl stayed in our home. She prayed for me all weekend while I marched in the band on Friday night, and while I went to the band hayride on Saturday, and while I went to my friend's wedding, and while I did all these other things. And Sunday morning in church, I felt an adult call of God. And I said yes to Jesus. And so the verse I'm going to share with you is kind of what happened after that. It's Jeremiah 29:11, and it says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord." And so that day, I prayed this very bold, outrageous prayer. I said, "Jesus, you can have all of me." And he took me at my word. Because the journey I had planned for myself was to join the Navy, become a physician, never get married, become a flight surgeon so that I could fly on helicopters and operate at the same time. And I've always been a type A overachiever, in case no one ever noticed that. And so I just began to pursue that dream. You know, the Vietnam War was going on, and so, you know, that's good combat experience. I had it all planned. And that day when I said, "Jesus, you can have all of me," he took me at my word, and I ended up in Roselle, New Jersey. Not a flight surgeon. I'm a big operator, but I don't know about in a helicopter. And I'm married for 42 years. To a guy that, if I'm totally honest with myself, I wouldn't have given half a mind to even talk to if it would not be for Jesus. And so what happened to me was this amazing thing. Has it all been a bed of roses? No. He never has a bad day because I take his bad days for him. It's kind of what marriage is. We journey into eternity together. He's happy. I, suffer and take care of all the problems. But it's absolutely nothing like I had planned. But it is nothing like I wouldn't do over again 100 times. To have the peace that I have, serving the God that I serve, being married to the man that I'm married to, having the children that I have and the grandchild that I have, and the people that God has given me to pastor. And I would like to introduce Donnell Jag Sainville.
Oh, how you guys doing? So, As PS said, my name is Donnell. My friends and family call me Jag. It's short for Jaguar. And it's an identity that God has given me to live up to. And when I think about a journey with Jesus, for me, my thoughts came to like a metaphor. And you think about this Jaguar, this identity that God has given me. And imagine growing up, you get this metal collar just put on you with the chain. And as you're going through life, I think about the things that I went through and how things are just pulling and pulling. And I'm thinking about this Jaguar is supposed to be this vicious predator for God, like going after souls and helping the kingdom. And I'm thinking like, why am I always handicapped? And so I don't want to go through all of the times I felt handicapped, but I think about my mom raising 3 boys on her own and feeling like, just like my wife talked about, just always rejected, always handicapped, took me out of a black school, dropped me into a mainly white school, so I felt like, okay, I was less than. It's just always this tug in my neck that how come I can't, go free? And so in this journey with Jesus, the best way that I could describe it is, how many of you guys seen the movie Coco? Coco? Oh, yes, good. For those who haven't seen it, it's about a boy named Miguel, 12 years old. And he goes on this journey where he wants to be a musician, but his family banned music because his great-great-grandfather left his family to go pursue music. So they're not allowed to have any music, no music. And so he goes on this journey to find his great-great-grandfather, who ends up being the hero that he looks up to. I want to be just like him. And he finds out something. And the way it happens is his journey started off with a photo. And by accident, he breaks the photo. It falls to the ground and it cracks. And he's like, man, I got to fix this. Something's wrong. Like, I'm going to get in trouble. So he picks up the photo out of the frame, and he realizes that the photo that was in the frame wasn't the actual size. He opens the photo up, and he sees a guitar, the same guitar that his hero has that he looks up to. And he finds out, wait, all this time that music was banned, that was my grandfather? That I have like greatness within me. And so what I thought about God was showing me, it was like, you see, Jag, his journey started off with something that broke. Something broke in his life to start off a journey to discover who he is. And I was asking Father, like, when I was younger, I'm like, why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? And he said, listen, Jag, I didn't want you to wait and stay at the broken part. I wanted you to pick up the picture and open it up, because the way your life was framed, it was hiding the true picture of what was going on. And the true picture is, no, you have greatness within you. You're not handicapped. You don't have this thing in your neck pulling you. And I thought about my relationship with Jesus is this thing of discovering, not about how much can you do, Jag. We think about, we want to hear well done, good and faithful servant. He's not, don't get it wrong. It's not well done. It's how much did you believe I loved you? Because through that is where it'll be well done. And I'm like, Father, you just want me to believe how much you love me? Like how much I could believe that? He says, yes, Jag, listen, my boy, get those chains off and run. Run like you've never ran before. Run like that Jaguar you envision. Run and don't allow yourself to believe anything about you is handicapped, but that you are free. And I know there's people in here that feel like the picture dropped, something broke in your life. And God is saying, please don't stay there. I didn't mean for that photo to break and just for you to be defined by that brokenness. I wanted you to get released from the picture frame, from the frame of life that people, yourself, your mind, your rejection put you in. And I wanted you to open up the real picture I have within you, because somebody hid it and he wants the truth to come out. So he broke that within me so he can place and input truth. Will you allow him to take any brokenness that you're going through so that he could put in truth? The truth that, no, you are meant to be great within my love. And that's been my journey, and I'm growing more and more in that. And now I would like to welcome my friend Khadijah, Gabriel.
Good morning. Still got 5 minutes on the clock. All right, guys. So my name is Khadijah Gabriel. And so I grew up in church. I have a mom who was a pastor, and I have a dad who's a bishop, right? So I grew up in church. I, like PS, thought I had a relationship with God. And then it's ironic, I guess. So this is Friendship Sunday, right? My friends are the ones that encouraged me to come here. And my friend tried from 6th grade all the way till, I don't think I came here till maybe 10th grade. He tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and I never came. And then I came, right? I came to youth group, and I had a moment. I had an encounter with God. His presence and I became one. I don't know how to explain it. It was youth group. We were deep. We were in worship. I never heard music like this before. First of all, it wasn't all black people in my church, right? So like it was white people, it was Spanish people, and we were all entering in. Like that was mind-blowing to a person like me. So for me, my friends are the ones that encouraged me to come, and they led me to Christ. Well, to the true meaning of Christ, all right? And so I go through life, and like I am the oldest of one and then the youngest of another parent. And so I've always kind of didn't really feel wherever. I didn't feel belong. I didn't feel like I had a place to belong. And we had things going on in life that I just didn't know how to navigate. And I remember one night during youth service, my prayer to God was, God, I want to know you more. I want you to show me how do I get past these things that I have going on in life. And the scripture that came to me, which is now my life verse, is Matthew 21. And I'm starting from verse 20, it says, when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, how did the fig tree wither at once? And Jesus answered to them, truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what has been done to the fig, but even if you say to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, it will happen. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive it, if you have faith. And so the key I learned throughout my journey is to have faith in anything, in every situation, to have faith in God, because without his faith, I can't do anything. I can want, I can dream, I can aspire, but I have to have faith. I have to exchange that moment of weakness. I have to exchange that moment of fear, that moment of doubt, that moment of rejection. I have to exchange those things and take his faith and allow him to soothe me and comfort me and keep me. So now I am going to bring Eric.
Hey, everyone. I'm actually really, really excited right now because there's somebody that I've been trying to get to come here for a while. And I told him that the day that he came in, I'd say an inside joke to him. God bless, Scotty. I just needed to get that out. So I want to tell you guys a story. I grew up for most of my childhood as an only child, okay? I didn't have any siblings until my brother Nathaniel with my mom and my stepfather was born at about 11 or 12 years old. And growing up alone was difficult for me. Anybody here have a superhero mom? Raise your hand if you have a superhero mom. Everybody better raise your hand. You better raise your hand if your mom is here. Because I see moms looking around like, well, hello. Like, you took a little long to raise that hand. I grew up with a superhero mom. And the reason why I say that is because my parents, they separated when I was 1. They got divorced. And my mom had to make ends meet. And what did that mean? That means she had to work a lot. And during some of my vital years, I was what you call a latchkey child, which means you close the latch because the kid has to stay home alone. I want you to picture, I don't know how old I was, maybe 7, 8 years old. Me, a lot more smaller, a little more skinnier. In the middle of the night. There's one specific night that for some reason I always remember this night being in our apartment alone. And as I was thinking of the message this week, I remembered why I remembered that moment. As a kid, you're scared of the dark. And I was scared of the dark. One night I was having a lot of difficulty going to sleep. And I'd stay up. Listen, I grew up on I Love Lucy and Captain Planet. You know, those late night TV shows. Those were what comforted me. You know, Lucy was like my cousin that stayed over at night with me. And I was watching all my shows, but that night I stayed up particularly late. I was having trouble falling asleep. And I remember Captain Planet was on the TV. And our living room, the way the living room was set up, my mom had her bed in the living room, and I had my own room. And I was sleeping in my mom's bed. Yes, I already established that I was scared. And I was sitting on her bed, and there was a huge mirror that was literally the wall. The whole wall was a mirror. And as I was having trouble sleeping, it was a cold night. I remember I took the comforters and I did my little twisty teepee. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about, where you like make your little teepee. And I just covered myself. And I remember I was just staring into the mirror. And then I just kept staring. And I just kept staring. And as I looked into the mirror, all I saw was myself. And I felt so alone. Growing up, I remember that one of the biggest things, especially after I met Jesus a few years later, was that I wanted a mentor so bad. Anybody ever been there? You just want somebody to mentor you. You want somebody to sit you down and tell you this is how you do it. Right? Sometimes they're hard to find. Some people, they don't take the people that are there for them. We won't talk about that. But I wanted somebody to mentor me so bad. And there were so many adults who told me, Eric, you're so talented. Eric, you're so this, you're so that. And then when I sought out somebody to teach me and help me grow, nobody would be willing. After so many years being in church and doing ministry, I remember there was this one day that after a couple of months, listen, there was a couple of months where I was like I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a mentor. You know when you get really determined about something? I'm like, I'm tired of this. I'm going to find me a mentor. There was one day after all of that process that I said, God, why is it that it is so hard for me to find a mentor? And let me tell you what I felt he said back to me. He said, I am your mentor. And in that moment, I began to weep and sob because it hit. You know how God, and if you don't know this, let me invite you into that real quick, because God can say one thing, and yet say so many things at that same time. What he was telling me, as my mind went back to that moment, staring into the mirror, when I felt so alone in different moments of my life, what he told me when I was looking for mentors and for somebody to teach me, what he told me was this: I was there. I am your mentor. I am your father. I am everything you need. Part of my journey was me understanding that every single thing I need, everything I need is in Jesus. And all of the stories that we heard here today all encapsulate under that one message, that all of us had an encounter with Jesus at some point in our journey, and everything began to make sense. Everything began to make sense because Jesus brought meaning to the pain. Jesus brought meaning to the lostness. Jesus brought meaning to the chain. Jesus brought meaning to everything that we knew up until that point. And so I thought I needed a mentor. I thought I needed companionship. I thought I needed more people, but what I really needed was God. So if you find yourself today in need of anything, let me tell you something. If there has been a running theme in your life and in your journey that there is something that you need, and whether you tell yourself there is something that you are lacking, let me tell you the answer to that need has a name, and his name is Jesus. And we want to tell you these stories, not just to tug at your heartstrings or to share with you who we are. Those are part of the reason we want you to know who we are on a special day such as today. But ultimately, we want to invite you into a deeper relationship with the Lord of the universe, the author of life, the King of Kings. So I want to invite everybody to stand, please. And right there where you are, I want you to just close your eyes. If any of the stories today touched your heart, if any of the stories today ministered to you, spoke to you in any type of way, we want to invite you to come up to the front so that we can pray for you. And the reason why we want to do that is because we understand that today is about getting closer to Jesus and about nothing else. So if you feel like you need to get closer to God, if you feel that you need to get closer to Jesus, we want to invite you up. We want to pray for you today. Lord, we give you glory.